Mara had a cat that only had 3 legs, a rabbit with 1 ear, and a box turtle she had been nursing back to health for the better part of a year. She kept them in the small back room of the Harlow County Animal Rescue, where she also kept her lunch and a spare pair of boots, and, on the harder days, her tears. People in town knew her the way they knew the old water tower on Route 9, always there, never thought about. Her mother described her to strangers as the quiet one, which was the kindest version of a longer story Mara had stopped telling. She was 23. She walked to work because she had no car. She wore the same green jacket every day because it had deep pockets, and deep pockets were more useful than anything else she owned. She did not think of herself as remarkable. She was wrong, but she had not found that out yet. Lou. The wolf came in on a Thursday morning, in the back of a park ranger's truck, wrapped in a heavy tarp. 140 pounds, black fur, eyes the color of tree sap held up to sunlight. No collar, no tag, no way to know where it had come from. It had been found collapsed on the logging road outside town, and it had taken 4 men to lift it into the truck, and 2 of those men had small cuts on their hands from the attempt. The rescue was not equipped for wolves. Everyone said so, loudly, in the parking lot. The vet on call, Dr. Pelham, who had been doing this for 30 years, stood at the entrance to the holding pen and shook his head. "I can sedate it from here," he said. "That's the best I can offer." The 3 volunteers on shift that morning stood well back. The wolf had recovered enough from whatever had felled it to be awake, and being awake, it was not calm. Mara was in the back room, changing the turtle's bandaging, when someone knocked on the doorframe and told her there was a situation. She came out, looked at the pen, looked at the wolf, and asked if anyone had given it water. Silence. She went to the utility sink, filled a bowl, and walked to the pen door. "Mara." That was Dr. Pelham. His voice had the particular tightness of a man choosing his words carefully. "I would strongly advise against opening that door." "I'm not going to rush it," she said. "That is not the part I'm concerned about." She opened the door anyway. She did not move quickly. She did not make herself small, and she did not make herself large. She simply walked in and sat down on the concrete floor, cross-legged, about 8 feet from where the wolf had pressed itself into the back corner. She set the bowl down in front of her. She did not push it forward. She did not reach toward the wolf. She just sat. The wolf watched her. She looked at a point slightly to the left of it, not avoiding its eyes, not challenging them either, just existing in the same space. Her breathing was slow. She had learned, over years of working with frightened animals, that the body tells the truth even when the voice lies, and so she made sure her body was telling the truth. She was not afraid. She was not performing calm. She was simply there. 11 minutes passed. The wolf moved. It moved slowly, the way water moves when there is no reason to rush. It came forward 1 step, then 2. Then it lowered its head to the bowl and drank. When it was finished, it lifted its head and looked at her for a long time. Then it walked the remaining 8 feet and put its head on her knee. Mara placed her hand very gently on the back of its neck, where the fur was thickest, and did not move. Outside the pen, one of the volunteers was holding a phone with both hands, and she had stopped breathing entirely without realizing it. Callum Reed arrived on a Saturday. He drove a truck that was large and clean, which told you something about him, that he had the money to keep things clean, and that he cared enough to bother. He was tall, with the kind of build that came from actual physical work rather than a gym, and he had the manner of a man who had been the most capable person in most rooms for long enough that he had stopped noticing it. He had been looking for the wolf for 3 days. He stood in the small front office of the rescue and explained, without raising his voice, that the animal in the back pen was his, that his name was Reed, that he ran the Reed Wildlife Rehabilitation Ranch on the north side of the county, and that the wolf, whose name was Solomon, had escaped during a break in the perimeter fencing during last week's storm. The volunteer at the desk pulled up the footage on her phone and held it out to him. Callum watched it without expression. He watched it twice. Then he handed the phone back and was quiet for a moment. "Who is she?" he asked. "Mara. She works here. I'd like to meet her. I'd like to meet her. I'd like to meet her." Mara was in the back with Solomon when he found her. The wolf was asleep across her feet, which were going numb, and she had been reading a paperback mystery with the cover bent back, because that was how she read, and she looked up when the door opened and said nothing. Callum looked at his wolf. His wolf did not open its eyes. "He doesn't sleep like that," Callum said, "not with people around." "He does now," Mara said. Callum pulled a folding chair from against the wall and sat down, which she had not expected. Most people stood in doorways. He introduced himself. She said she knew who he was. He said he supposed the whole county did, and she said that was probably true, and neither of them smiled, but it was close. He offered her a job at the ranch. He explained it plainly. Solomon would not cooperate with transport without her, would not eat consistently without her, and the ranch had 16 other animals that required skilled handling. He named a salary. It was more than she made in a year at the rescue. She said no. He came back Monday morning with coffee. She had already made her own. He offered more money. She told him it wasn't about the money. He looked at her for a moment, with the expression of a man working through a problem he did not have the usual tools for. "What is it about then?" he asked. "I have animals here that need me," she said. "I have animals at the ranch that need you too." "Those are yours," she said. "These ones don't have anyone else." He left, without pushing further, which was the second interesting thing she noticed about him. The first had been the expression on his face when she said it wasn't about the money. She went back to Solomon. He was watching the door. She came back 2 days later, at the end of her shift, and stood outside his pen. He had not eaten that day. He had eaten the day before, when she had been there. He was not sick. He was not injured. He was waiting. She understood that. She had spent years understanding exactly that. She gave her notice the following morning. The Reed Ranch was nothing like the rescue. The rescue was warm and chaotic, and smelled of antiseptic and wet fur and effort. The ranch was ordered, wide, clean-fenced, quiet in the way of places where serious work is being done. There were 14 staff members, a full veterinary suite in the East Building, and a system of record-keeping so thorough that Mara's first week felt like learning a new language. The staff were polite to her in the guarded way that people are polite to someone they have not yet decided about. She did not take it personally. She had been undecided about herself for most of her life, and understood it was a reasonable position to hold. Callum was professional and present, and almost entirely unreadable. He walked the property at 6 every morning, and again at 6 every evening. He knew every animal by name, every medication schedule, every feeding routine. He asked precise questions, and gave clear instructions, and did not make small talk. Solomon followed Mara everywhere. This was not lost on anyone. "He's never done that," said one of the senior handlers, a woman named Bet who had worked at the ranch for 9 years and had the steady, unhurried quality of someone who no longer needed to prove anything. Not once, not with anyone. "He's just comfortable," Mara said. Bet looked at the wolf, who was sitting 3 feet from Mara's left boot and watching the middle distance with the patient attention of a creature that has nowhere else it would rather be. "Sure," Bet said. "Comfortable." Late October, when the fence in the north compound failed. The storm came in fast, the way they did in that part of the country, with very little warning and a great deal of conviction. A wolf from the North Pack, a young male, 2 years old, not aggressive by nature, but frightened now, and separated from the pack, and therefore dangerous in the way that frightened things always are, got through a section of fencing that the wind had pulled loose. He ended up cornering one of the younger hands, a 19-year-old named Dustin, against the wall of the equipment shed. Dustin had backed himself as far as he could go, and had gone very still, which was the right instinct, but the wolf was still advancing, and Callum was on the other side of the property, and there was no time. Mara came around the corner of the shed and stopped. She took in the scene in a single moment. Dustin against the wall, the wolf between them, the rain coming down hard and loud. She did not run. She did not call out. She began walking toward the wolf at the same speed she always walked, which was not slow and was not fast, and she talked. Not commands, not sharp noises, just words, low and even, the way you might talk to someone who has had a very bad day and needs to know that it is going to be all right. She told the wolf that nobody was going to get hurt. She told it that it was okay to be scared, and that being scared made sense, and that she understood. She told it the storm would pass. She kept walking, steadily, and the wolf turned from Dustin to face her, and she looked at it the way she always looked. Not at its eyes, and not away from them, just at it, honestly. The wolf backed down. It took 3 more minutes for Callum to reach them. By that time, Mara was checking Dustin's arm, the wolf had withdrawn to the far edge of the clearing, and the rain was beginning to ease. Callum stood at the edge of the shed and looked at all of this. He did not say anything for a long time. At dinner that night, Dustin told everyone what had happened, because 19-year-olds do not keep quiet about the moments that rearrange their understanding of the world. He said he had never seen anything like it. He said she just walked right up to it and talked to it. He looked at Mara from across the table and said, "What did you say to it exactly?" Mara thought about it. "I just told it the truth," she said. "What truth?" "That everything was going to be okay. That nobody needed to get hurt today." The table was quiet. Callum looked at her across the empty plates and the low light of the dining room. Mara looked back. Neither of them looked away first, and then the conversation moved on, and neither of them mentioned it. But something had shifted, the way ground shifts after rain. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in a way that changes where your feet land. He found her in the barn at 11:30 on a Thursday in late October. Solomon was asleep across her feet. She had a book open on her knee. The barn was warm and smelled of hay and the particular quiet of animals at rest. Callum came in and looked at the wolf, and then at her, and then he sat down on a hay bale, because there was no chair, and he was not the kind of man who stands over people. He sat with his elbows on his knees and looked at his hands for a moment. "I've been studying animal behavior for 17 years, he said. He said it carefully, like he was reading from a document he had written and revised many times. "I have a graduate degree. I've worked with species on 4 continents. I've been doing this my entire adult life." Mara waited. "I don't have a way to explain what you do," he said. "Maybe it isn't something you explain," she said. "Maybe it isn't something you study. I know that now." He was quiet for a moment. Solomon breathed slowly under her hand. The barn settled around them. "I've known it for a while, if I'm honest." The rain had started again outside, very softly. "Why did you come find me tonight?" she asked. He looked up. In the low light of the barn, he looked less like the version of himself that ran meetings and managed staff and made decisions that other people carried out. He looked like someone who had been carrying something for a long time and had decided, finally, to put it down. "I've been trying to answer that question for 2 months," he said. "I keep arriving at the same answer." "What is it?" He told her. She listened. She did not rush to fill the space he left when he finished. She looked at him, the way she looked at the animals. Honestly, without performing anything, just taking him in, as he actually was. A man who was difficult and precise, and unexpectedly patient, and, it turned out, afraid of very little except the things that actually mattered. The wolf shifted in his sleep. "Okay," she said. He blinked. "Okay?" "Okay," she said again. Simply. Hull. She stayed. Not because he was powerful, or because the salary was good, or because someone had finally looked at her and seen what was there. She had known what was there for a long time. She stayed because the work was real, and the animals needed her, and Callum turned out to be worth the particular difficulty of letting another person in. 6 months later, her mother called. Mara was outside, walking the perimeter at dusk. Solomon at her left side as always. They talked for a while. Her mother asked how things were. Mara said things were good, and she said it in the voice of someone who means it completely, without qualification, without the small pause that used to live inside that sentence. In the background of the call, her mother heard something, a low, steady sound, warm and close. "What is that?" her mother asked. Mara looked down at Solomon. "The dog," she said. She hung up smiling and walked on into the evening, and the wolf walked beside her, and neither of them needed the world to see it, to know that it was real.